Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anna Baker, Marketing Manager at Vanderbloemen. Welcome to today's panel on balancing our new reality of online and in-person worship. From our previous panels, it's been really clear that the worship experience is one of the most missed parts of meeting together in person, and it's been one of the hardest transitions for people not being able to go to church. So today we've got an awesome panel of worship leaders here to chat with us about what they've been doing and what their church is going to continue to do as we move forward. Leading our conversation today is VP of Sales and Client Relations, Sarah Robbins. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hi. So we are, as you can see, talking about worship. We have a myriad of panelists today. One of them is in the middle of actually recording worship for the week, Eric Harding. And I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves, say hello. So who you are, what's the name of your church, quick temperature on the flavor of your worship. Eric might be popping off because they've got to get back to recording, such is life. But yeah, go ahead.
I'll go first just in case I have to bounce. My name is Eric Harding. I'm at Clear Creek Community Church. We're a camp, like a multi-campus church. And so actually, flavor of our worship is, I don't know, like awesome. Well, the guys said awesome. I don't know. It's the flavor of our worship. It's a couple of electrics, keys, singers, team, kind of a thing like that. Kind of what it looks like behind me right now. And so we're actually recording our worship service we do 2 weeks at a time. So the team of worship leaders comes up, we pre-record 2 weeks, and then we're kind of go back and we have all the editing and stuff, putting together a service that streams on Sundays. So
awesome. Thanks, Eric. And then I'm going to go clockwise on my screen. So Charles Brown. Charles, say hello. Oh, and then unmute yourself.
Now we're in business.
We'll do okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charles Brown. I serve as Director of Music and Arts for First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens out in Somerset, New Jersey. In terms of the flavor of our worship, we are a traditional Baptist church steeped in the African-American tradition, but certainly we have a multicultural congregation and just growing diversity within our congregation.
Awesome. And we're currently working with Charles's church right now, so it's a big honor to have him here. And then to keep going around, Tavares Linzer is joining us, and he is in a really cool spot. He's actually transitioning. He was a worship pastor at one church. In the middle of COVID-19, he's becoming a worship pastor at a new church. So say hello.
Well, yeah, indeed. It's a weird season, but rewarding in many ways. So, but again, my name is Tavares Linzer, and I'm a local worship leader and recording artist here in the Houston and Bay Area. And just the temperature, or I guess what I try to bring to a worship team or a worship experience is authenticity. And part of that is, knowing your crowd. And so in knowing the crowd, it's been a lot of contemporary kind of style, if we're talking about the flavor of the music, more contemporary style, contemporary meets gospel, however that sounds to you. So, but again, I've had the blessing and privilege of serving at many different churches, and as I'm in transition season, one of the things that I try to bring is just this authentic sound that looks like the people that we get to worship with. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks. And then Ryan Romeo, he is a worship leader. He does consulting. You've been doing this worship gig a long time. Say hello, Ryan.
Yeah. So I am the worship and creative arts pastor here at Living Streams in Central Phoenix. And that's my day job. On the side, my friend Shane and I started a tour called the Outcry Tour, which is like a worship centered tour. And yeah, our church it's interesting. I would kind of put it in the, for worship leaders, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to put it a little bit more in the Bethel category of full band, spirit-led sort of vibe. But we've been a church for about 30 years. We've transitioned to a new senior pastor about 4 years ago. So we've gone through a bit of a transition, but just like everybody else here, we're just trying to keep the ship afloat and change absolutely everything that we're doing about worship every week, all the time, just to try to, adapt to the COVID season. So yeah, we are just like everybody else, just trying to keep going.
Just trying to survive. And then Lizzie Bailey, say hello, Lizzie. Lizzie is, she leads worship. She's an artist, recording artist as well. And has I won't do it for you. I'll let you do it.
You can do it. Hi, I am Lizzie Bailey. I live in a suburb of Houston, Northwest Houston in Spring Klein area. And I am on staff at Faith Bridge Church. And we are, I like what you said, Tavarius, kind of mainstream contemporary with some gospel flavor. We want to be, we are growing in diversity as well and want more of that and want to stretch our people. I mean, I grew up with hymns. I love hymns as well, but I love kind of making them sound new. And so we're pretty eclectic, I think, style-wise. We do some stuff that's singer-songwriter. I write a lot of original stuff that we incorporate, and then my colleague also is very creative, and so we're trying to move toward having more original worship music at our church as well. So it's just kind of a mixed bag of all those things.
Awesome. Creatives, you guys are so fun. So Eric, before he has to jump off, I know that you guys have been doing a lot of super interesting stuff. Real quick, okay, let me say it like this. COVID blew everything up, and now we're putting all the pieces back together to look a little different right now. We're all doing it. What would you say that what you're doing now is going to keep carrying forward that you think is super positive of what?
I think, well, one of the biggest things that we've ran into is we didn't really have much of an online presence before this started. And so we've had to kind of go, all right, this is an opportunity to build this. And then at the same time, we can then go from here to have like something that continues on. So even though we won't be doing this same intensity of service after this, we will come back to getting to do this after the fact. We'll kind of keep this going almost like another campus of our church. So
yeah,
looks like we're beginning. I will jump back on when we get done.
No, that's great.
Okay.
I like that he said that. It was like another campus of their church. Okay, then Charles, I would love to hear you speak into this. So one interesting thing about what Charles's church has been doing is they haven't actually been recording their stuff. They've only been live streaming. So what would you say that you guys have from the pieces that you're putting back together, you're taking into moving forward?
Sure. Well, I think, similar to Eric, we had a focus on live streaming, but I think within the last, 20 years, we started live streaming maybe about 20 years ago or so, but we just really realize and recognize now that we need a much more strategic focus around what we do with live streaming. So during this whole pandemic, one of the things that we've had to do is increase our streaming capacity in terms of because we actually work with live stream. Live stream feeds our Facebook and feeds the other social platforms like YouTube, etc. So we've had to increase our capacity to live stream. I think someone mentioned it a moment ago. COVID blew up what we were doing. So as a result, I don't think, even when we get back into the sanctuary, we can expect things to go back to the quote unquote norm. So we need to be prepared for an influx of online worshipers. So I think a lot of our focus has been around that, making sure what we're doing is, visually appealing, make sure folks from a online viewership perspective can actually see the precautions that we're taking to social distance. We talk about how we sanitize and are cleaning the sanctuary and sanitizing our equipment, etc. So I think it's just really a much more strategic focus around what we're doing with our online worshipers. And I'm talking about the music portion, but there's a whole other side in terms of small groups and how, the church is engaging the online worshipers as well.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me into a question, because I know that Lizzie and Ryan, you guys have been recording stuff. Lizzie, maybe you go first. As you guys have been recording stuff, how has the breathing into a microphone, singing next to people. How have you guys managed that? And then could you speak, just because I know that FaithBridge has different services, types of services, speak into the multiple singers aspect at all? Or have, you know, how much emphasis or pressure has been around that?
Well, we definitely, in between every recording, take all the sanitizing measures, you know, sanitize all the mics, all the packs. We're really conscientious about that, and just have been doing those practices since the beginning. We've done a little bit different things. So pre-COVID, we would, like Charles said, we would live stream the service, and we you know, we had a little bit of an online following, but it wasn't a huge, we didn't give it a ton of attention, I'll say. We were way more focused on the physical gathering. And when we started live streaming, we said, you know, we didn't want to just get on the stage and do the regular Sunday play. We wanted it to, you know, everybody was in their home. So we said, what if we just worship in our homes and record that? So we'll go to the pastor and he preaches from home. And then we'll go to the worship leader, and I'm in my living room, you know, with an acoustic leading a few songs. And then, so everybody was home. And I don't know if y'all have ever seen, there's a British TV show called Gogglebox, but it shows, you just watch people watch TV, basically. It's real silly and stuff. But we sort of followed that model in that we had what was going on either with preaching or somebody talking about, you know, what's going on, or worship. And then we also had cameras in a couple of people's homes where you just watched them sitting in their living room, you know, with their kids or whatever, to sort of make it feel like, hey, we're all doing the same thing. We're all in the living room. We've got our dog and our coffee and whatever. And so we called it kind of home church from the beginning. We haven't done the get on the stage with the full band at all, really. But after a few weeks of being in homes, we realized that was difficult and unsustainable to have a video crew coming in every week and moving furniture. And so we sort of built like a fake living room on campus. And so we go into that space every week. And it might be me and my colleague LA, it might be, it's just different mixtures of people and musicians every time. But we've tried to maintain that home church feel. And that is one thing that we definitely, like Eric said, going forward, even when we start to meet in person again, our online, I mean, it really is like another campus, and we want to continue those relationships. We want to continue, you know, being very proactive about connecting with people during the gatherings and stuff. So we'll keep that going, whether it looks exactly the same or is tweaked, I don't know, but it'll still, we're already like adding to our production staff to make sure we can keep that up.
That's awesome. That is super clever. I've seen a little bit of it on Lizzie's Facebook, so it's really neat to, I was wondering how they were doing the home thing, and that answers that. Ryan, if you don't mind, to kind of follow that up about what it's looked like for you guys.
Yeah. So we were doing kind of like you guys were saying, we were live streaming. It just was not central to what we did. It was kind of like we would turn on live stream and they would view what we were doing on Sunday, basically. And we had to shift that into going, okay, it's not, they're not viewing what we're doing. We're now incorporating them into what we're doing. And it was a big shift for us. And some of the things we realized right off the bat, which was really hard for a worship leader to confront, was engagement was not staying up when we were doing really long worship sets. So we started trimming back to about a 20 to 25 minute worship set. And we started developing after a while this idea of touch points. So every 10 minutes, we'll tell our team, we need a touch point. We need something where you look at the camera and say, hey, maybe you're going through this in life, even as the worship leader, to keep engagement going and to help people feel a part of what we're doing. And so trying to bridge that gap between the worship leader and the camera, and trying to bridge that gap in between, you know, like getting into somebody's home. So we started doing just our normal Sunday morning service on stage. And we actually kind of shifted out, which was interesting. We showed the empty room when we were leading worship as the background, as kind of a statement of like, hey, you guys aren't here, but we're still here. And so it was kind of interesting. But then after a while, when we shifted from being real reactionary to it to being a little bit more proactive and saying, okay, well, we don't want to just say, okay, well, we have to stay home because of COVID. Here in Arizona, this was kind of before we respiked, things were not looking so bad. And so when things were looking a little bit better and our governor started opening up a little bit more, what we did is we changed to a sermon series called At Home But Not Alone. And we did kind of the same thing that Lizzie did. We built a living room set on stage or on our campus, filmed there, and we encouraged our small group. So we connected with our life group pastor and said, hey, could you guys start meeting in your homes, kind of like Acts 2 sort of thing, meet in your home with just a handful of you and watch service together. So then we started getting, pictures of people kind of holding small church gatherings in their homes, watching live stream. So we just finished that series, and now Arizona's going through a new spike, and we were planning on reopening. And of course, like everything else in 2020, we canceled all those plans and doing, trying to keep it dynamic. But ultimately we were just really, and we're always still chasing that. I was just in a meeting going, okay, how can we keep it dynamic? How can we keep it interesting? How can we keep it meaningful and really speaking into people's lives right now? And that's been the big thing for us when it comes to live stream.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. To pull on that thread a little more, maybe Tavares, if you can speak into this. So I feel like one of the hardest things that we have, and I help with the worship at my church, that we've had to think through is that keeping that connection. But then even beyond that, I feel like keeping the connection of your your players, your players, your musicians, that in and of it, I feel like in most churches that I've engaged with, the music ministry becomes its own small group, for better or for worse. And so what, speak into that a little bit. And again, I know you're in transition, but you were doing this a little bit at your old church and where you are now. What has that burden felt like? And then any thoughts around continuing that ministry of loving on your players, your musicians, your own music small group, creative small group?
Yeah, well, quickly, the beauty about this entire thing, I guess the common thread between us all is not necessarily what we're saying, but it's the fact that we're saying something. So it's indicative of intentionality. And so be it live stream, in-person services, there's intentionality there. And one of the things that I've seen and have been blessed to be a part of is not only being intentional on stage or online, but also behind the scenes, continuing to be intentional. So be it with our worship team members or some of the other volunteers that have served in the church, just being intentional with them and helping them to not grow weary, throughout this process as well. So that's where you have small groups, and even if it's not called a small group, maybe you're just creating a group message between you and your team, and you're just checking on them every now and then, and being, again, intentional with encouraging them. We all need encouragement throughout this time. And so just reassuring them that God is still in the midst. He's still here. He's still all up and through this whole situation. He's lost no power. And, I think it has a lot more to do with us just being intentional as opposed to what we do, because the church, in Arizona may do something completely different than what we do out here in Texas. But again, it's intentionality, and it begins with, or I guess it's more important to be intentional with your team, volunteer team. Like I said, creating that little text message thread, sending out, emails, kind of being a little annoying if you have to, whatever it looks like, it's just intentionality is very, very important.
Yeah, no, that's great. Cause that kind of goes what Ryan was just saying, like instead of being reactive, we had to start, we had to change the game and move forward in that way. Well, and I'm going to stay on you for a second, Tavares, because he in his new church that he's beginning at, he actually led live with human beings in the room this last Sunday. So yeah. Quickly, how did that go? I know exactly. How did that go? What did it feel like? Was it weird? Anything that you've already thought, we're going to have to adjust to this now moving forward?
Yeah. So the crazy thing is the church that I transitioned from started live services 2 weeks before I even, led worship as a guest for this new church. So I've gotten, and then I also guest led a week ago for another church. So I've seen 3 different congregations, 3 different reactions. I've heard 3 different reasons as to why they decided to meet, in person. And you can tell that some people are nervous. And so with that being the case, one of the responsibilities that I take on in that moment is, how do we encourage people to push that aside and really engage and focus? And, that's not easy to do, because at the same time, while you are trying to help others focus, you too yourself are trying to focus in that moment, and you're trying to engage. And so it's been a mixture of things that I've seen. Some people are, nervous. Like I said, some people have been itching to get there, and they don't even want to leave. They're even willing to stay for the second service if they can, So it's been a mixture of things that I've seen. And I think, again, because I'm that person that looks for that common thread. What's the common thread? And the common thread is, for me, that they're doing something. They are there trying to engage with others, engage with the Holy Spirit in that moment, and just worship. Which, even in these difficult times, can be one of the most difficult things to do, is just quiet your heart, quiet yourself, and worship. And so that's something that I think that I've seen across the board, that we've tried to do as leaders and worship leaders as well. Just try to keep ringing that bell. Let's be encouraged. Even if you're uncomfortable here, or if you're that person that's been itching to get here for a long time, engage, and let's just enter in.
Yeah, that's cool. So special worship events. I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. I know, Charles, you guys did I believe it was like a worship night or something like that. Have any other, Charles, you can speak into it, but any other of you after him done anything like that, like a night of worship or something like that? Charles, okay, good. Ryan, okay, Charles, and then Ryan. Oh, awesome. Okay, we'll do all of you. Charles, you kick it off.
Sure, thanks, Sarah. I think one of the first things I'll say is, and I think we'll all agree, with COVID-19 kind of blowing up our standard order of operations, we all are finding ourselves doing things that are far outside of our normal job descriptions. So I think, and I'm thankful for my team at First Baptist, because I think we fully embrace that. And in fact, we actively, and to your point, Tabar, was just really intentionally sought out opportunities to give back to the church. There are people at home that are hurting. There are people at home who have lost loved ones, who have lost employment, etc. But they still tune in every week, and they're just committed to the ministries. They're committed to supporting what we do. So we wanted to find ways to give back. So one of the things that we did, we hosted a night of worship, and it was so well attended. It was really it took a lot of hard work, yes, but I think it turned out to be something that none of us really imagined in terms of the response that we got from it. I think as creatives, a lot of times we can be perfectionists. And we're, down to we're crossing all T's and trying to dot all I's. But for our parishioners, the folks who are on the receiving end, they really appreciated just the pure heart of worship that we brought to the forefront. So we did our night of worship a few weeks ago. An amazing event. I think, this was during kind of the height of a lot of the racial unrest in terms of the protests and things that were happening. So we dedicated an element to our night of worship to kind of speaking to that moment as well, and standing in solidarity with the communities of color that were hurting. So it gave us just a lot of opportunity to re-envision what we do in terms of worship, in terms of how we even deliver what we deliver musically. And we changed our our stage setup, because normally if you tune into our live stream, you kind of know what it's going to look like. So I think we really shocked our own system, our church's system, by changing our stage, changing our layout. I mean, we moved all the instruments. I mean, it was just visually, it was just incredible. We brought in some lighting, et cetera, to make it really, really exciting. And the church really, really appreciated that. And I think, you know, in the end, we achieved our goal of just making sure that our congregation know how much we're thinking about them. And I said this on the night of, and it still rings true. You know, we aren't together. We aren't able to worship together, but, you know, our hearts, they're just connected in a very real way. And I think we were successful at delivering that.
That's awesome. Ryan, yeah, tell us about what you've done.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's funny, for those of us on leadership, we were preparing. You know, if you guys are anything like us, we get a myriad of comments online. Some of them saying, you know, stop operating in fear. We got to get back together. And some people saying COVID is the end of the world. And so we knew there was this spectrum of people that were in our congregation, and we were kind of expecting some troublemakers. I hate to say it that way, but it was kind of like, okay, are we going to have some people that are going to just go around and try to hug everyone, or are we going to have people that are just going to be really mad that we're not, you know, being careful enough? And the thing that amazed me is actually, in that night, I felt a little bit bad because everybody was really respectful. And I was like, all of our fears of that, I was kind of going, this is pretty amazing to see everybody come together. And that aspect of it was really refreshing to me. We also had a lot of people join online, so we tried to do both. Pragmatically, our production team, we kind of joked, we turned on some motion lights, and all of a sudden there was like glass pouring out of one of them. It was like our car had been sitting in the front of our house for months, and then we started and we're like, oh, that's broken and that's broken. And so we were solving a lot of little technical issues just because we hadn't really been in our sanctuary on that level before. But the night was really special. It was really meaningful. And I was surprised. There was that cautiousness about it. A lot of people in our congregation are hungry to get back together, but they're also wanting us to be wise, and they're wanting the leadership to make wise decisions to be healthy for everybody. And so we really did our best when people came in to screen everybody and make sure everyone is feeling good. And we told everyone, we said, this is about as stringent as it gets. You know, we'll hopefully reduce past that, but we knew we had to start on that sort of level. So once the worship night happened, I felt like everybody was really hungry. And I was just really surprised at how much I missed being in a room with people and just hearing people singing. And it had just been a long time for us. And so the worship night was really refreshing for a lot of reasons. But Arizona, like I said, we're a little bit complicated because we were looking better a month ago than we are now. And so we're kind of going through a re-shutdown, which in some ways I think is a little more frustrating for everybody than the first shutdown, because everyone was looking forward to getting back together. And who knows what the fall brings, I mean, with the second wave or whatever people are talking about. But at the same time, I just think it was really worth it for us to do the worship night when we did it. And it made us hungry to get back together to do Sunday morning services too.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. Yeah, Lizzie, what are the worship night or outdoor or whatever the case?
Yeah, we did a drive-in service this past Saturday night, actually. So we set up a really massive, tall stage that you could see from far away, and, you know, made it look fun, and had the full band. But, you know, it was big enough we could all kind of spread out and still play as a band together. And so we did that. People drove up, and then I don't even know the technical word, but we connected to a satellite or whatever, so it could be on FM radio, whatever that means. I'm not a technical person. So people could just listen on, you know, 90 point whatever in their car, or we also had regular speakers, so if you were close enough, you could just hear it. But you could just stay in your car if you wanted with the air on, and, you know, have the FM radio and hear everything. And people, it was a variety of responses. Some people brought lawn chairs and sat, you know, outside their car, and some people stayed in their car. And I think it was a really good experience in a lot of ways. I mean, it certainly felt great to me to just see faces, and I have missed that as well. I've led worship at some other local churches since I've been free on Sunday mornings. So I've seen a lot of different, like Tavares said, just different, responses and ideas and thoughts about it. But the driving thing was cool. I mean, I think we're gonna try it again. I think the further away from the stage you were, the less positive it was. It just kind of felt a little awkward, I think, listening on your radio and being far away from the stage. But we're experimenting. We're trying to keep people engaged and keep saying, this is important to us, because it is. But we also want to be wise. And Ryan, we're kind of like you. We were looking better, and now it's kind of like, So we'll see. But
yeah, that's awesome. Have any of you can just kind of do this. Have any of you done the record, splice together Zoom videos and put that out? You, Tavares, y'all did? How did that turn out? And was it too much trouble? Do you know what I'm talking about? Our church did that. Like, I'm going to play the bass in my home to this song to a click. So playing to a click, and then you have the engineer put it all together. Was it too much trouble, or was it worth it to get it out? How did that?
Well, I was guest leading at another church, a good friend of mine, and someone hinted to it a second ago, but just being a perfectionist. That's me. So for me, it was difficult. I don't know about everybody else. For me, it was difficult because I'm like, man, I'm trying to process these vocals and this and that. In terms of the piecing it all together, the worship pastor is one of my best friends. And so I got a chance to, kind of get an idea as to what the after, math looks like in terms of putting it all together and making it make sense. And he said it took a lot of work, not only from the visual aspect, but also, the audio. And so if you don't know how to put those things together and to the viewers, make sure that what you're saying is also what you hear rather is at the same time what you see. It can be really, really difficult. So yeah, we did it. I think I've done it twice thus far. We tried it once with our church, or my former church at this point, and then once with the other church with my best friend. And he said it was very, very difficult, trying to make it make sense, basically.
Okay. I've seen a few of them. Our church did it. My husband's a music producer, so he was the poor soul that was syncing all of that up. And I know it wasn't super fun. And he fielded a lot of phone calls of like, do I push this button to record? And they were passing around a little apogee. I'm getting really nerdy here, but they're passing around like a little apogee that everybody was doing, and making sure the click was right. And I think they only did it once or twice and then called it on that. So, but maybe it was, Charles.
We did it a little different, Tavares. I completely sympathize with you. I know what it's like, the pain of just dotting those I's and crossing those T's. We did it a little bit different. We at the church, because we are live streaming every Sunday, and we do have pretty much the same crew of individuals, pretty small team, 4 musicians, 4 singers that are there every week. What we did was we pre-recorded the vocals right on site at the church. And then we brought in some other music ministry members to really accompany the 4 vocals that we already have to really kind of help create that choir sound. And we let our folks know in our mass choir that, we were looking to do a virtual choir project. Their vocals wouldn't necessarily be heard, but we wanted to make sure we at least got the visual. And again, this is all under the guise of, we know that everyone's kind of chomping at the bit to get back together. Our choir rehearsals, as much as they are rehearsals, they're also fellowships. I think someone said a moment ago, our music ministry sometimes can operate as small groups as well. So folks are really missing that fellowship and that closeness. So, we got everyone together on Zoom calls, just like this. We sent out kind of the reference vocals, so everybody knew the song and had opportunities to practice. And they stood, behind their cameras singing and dancing and moving. And it turned out really, really well. We're putting the final touches on it right now. Our media team is just phenomenal. They're working on just kind of putting all of the videos, and we had some cameo folks sending cameo videos, and the pastor and first lady, they ended up sending in videos. So we're putting together this. It's like a church project, and we're debuting it on the first Sunday in July. So again, it's something else that gets people excited and keeps folks, especially in our music ministry, engaged in worship. We've gotten a myriad of emails, when is the virtual choir project coming out? And we're debuting it on the first Sunday in July. So we have a whole bunch of folks that are going to be excited about that.
That's awesome. That's super clever. So I like that you told the choir, we're going to film you, but you need to not be upset that it's not really going to be your voice on it. And everybody had their expectations set, but they're getting to be on film, and it's way less work on the engineering side to do that.
Absolutely, because there is, and you all keep me honest here, there is, from what I know, there's no technology right now that exists that can deal with the latency issues that I think you were describing, Tavares, around, we all have different internet speeds and things. So, we could all be hearing the same song, but my lips are going to be moving at a different pace. And, there's a lot of latency issues there. And one way for us to circumvent that was really to we recorded the music at the church. We put, the finishing touches on the music kind of in our homes. We did some post-production on the music. Pre-recorded the vocals, so that helped out with a lot of the latency issues.
Okay, that's good to hear. This is my only, I'll reference my husband here. He's been trying to collaborate. This is super nerdy, and this might be helpful to some of you out there listening, but he's been trying to collaborate on some of his projects because, people in a studio close together doing vocals and stuff like that, it's not ideal. And so they've been using a lot of Zoom, and he found a plugin called Listen To. That is probably, it works on, oh gosh, my brain is, Ryan, help me out here, all of the recording.
I don't know, recording software?
Pro Tools, Lizzie, thank you. Pro Tools, it works on all of the recording software. Pro Tools is the main one, right? Anyways, whatever. So Listen To.
Logic is the main one.
Logic, well.
There you go. That's good. That's
I'm a
good.
Logic girl.
So he's
Logic is us too.
And he does Logic because he has to. That's the way he puts it. So anyways, okay, Anna is going to pop back on and send us you have a couple questions, some that were sent in earlier, and then some that might have popped up now.
Yeah, we'll start with one that we've got since you guys have started the conversation. So I kind of want to go around to each of you and talk about if your viewership has been increasing or decreasing as you've gone online. And then for those of you, who are going back, if you feel like it's decreasing again, I know it's really early in the game, but kind of what's happening online now. So let's go ahead and start with Charles.
Sure. So our viewership has increased drastically, online. I guess the great thing.
We were just talking about latency.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that we got to 40 minutes in before this happened.
I know. Well, Ryan, do you want to kind of get started? We'll see if Charles can.
Sure. Ours is funny. So yes, our viewership is much higher now than it was before COVID. But we have been seeing a decrease. Like when we first went live, we had this huge spike of people that were watching. And now it's kind of like trickled down a little bit. So we've been talking with our team going, okay, how much of that do we take responsibility for and go, okay, we need to try to make our services maybe a little bit more dynamic. And some of it was that, and some of it we get real comfortable and we really bank on people's loyalty to our church because they're coming all the time to watch. At some point though, we want to get better at our craft and say, okay, can we make our services more dynamic? Can we make something that's a little bit better to watch online? So our viewership for sure is higher than before, but it's ticked down a little bit. And we're trying to figure out what that really means for us.
Right. Charles, if you want to go ahead and continue, it looks like you're back. With it.
Sure. No, I was just saying we've seen an uptick in our viewership, and I think there's a lot of that is attributed to social media, with folks being able to share, because with live streaming, you get the crop of folks that are viewing on Sunday. But during the week, folks are still viewing. They're rebroadcasting. They're doing Facebook watch parties. They're sharing the YouTube link, which is all adding to our viewership. So we've seen a huge uptick in what we're offering. And I think, Ryan, to your point, we have to do what we have to do to keep things fresh, to keep things dynamic as well. So I think it's like I think we've all probably found ourselves in a almost like a television producer type of a role where, it's our job to really, again, keep things as dynamic, as innovative, as exciting, visually appealing as possible. And I think all of those components together have really helped us to increase our viewership online.
All right, Tavarius.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just speak to the two churches. Well, the one that I'm transitioning from, and then transitioning to, being the churches that I'm actually, involved in as it pertains to that. So, the church that I am transitioning from, it seemed like the viewership went down drastically, like after the first or second online service that we did. And then you get, the church that I'm transitioning to, where, the online viewership has doubled in most weeks, and we're seeing a lot of new people, in fact. So yeah, it's interesting. And I guess that might be because of how it's done, the church that I'm transitioning to. And by the way, I'm leaving out the names of the church for a specific reason, just in case anybody was wondering. But the church that I'm transitioning to had a lot of experience in, online worship and all that stuff. And so I guess it made it a little bit easier to do so under these circumstances, whereas the church that I was transitioning from had no, experience with online, live, any of that stuff. So, but how it's done, I think, can be attributed to, whether or not your viewership goes up or down. And it's a learning curve for anybody, especially considering all things. But some churches just have the resources and some don't, unfortunately. But it's certainly an opportunity to grow. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether or not you were doing it before, you're definitely doing it now and probably carrying it into the future.
Absolutely.
Okay, Lizzie, what about you?
Well, I mean, I kind of know, but I haven't really looked at the numbers in a while. I know that when COVID first hit, we first started doing all the live stuff that we were doing, that, they were saying, 2 or 3 times as many people are watching online than would be in the building. I think part of that was when it first happened, everybody was afraid and, what's going on, what is our pastor saying? And so more people were coming around, specifically on Sunday morning. And then as we've gone on, those numbers have gone down a little bit more, like Ryan said. So in one sense, it's grown in that we have regular people tuning in now who are like in other countries and other cities, who are like, this is my church. We've got a family in Vietnam that's like, Faith Ridge is my church. And I'm like, well, that's cool. So in some ways we've expanded in some way, but I think people, maybe they're not getting around the TV on Sunday morning like they were. Maybe they're watching later, like Charles alluded to. It's just the patterns are kind of all over the place right now. But overall, we for sure have been able to reach more people this way.
Yeah, and that is a good point, that there's going to be so many people watching that you wonder, when we go back to live services, are these people going to be a part of our service? Are they going to be a part of our church family? Or are they in a totally different place and they're going to continue watching online? Or will they kind of fall off and do something more local once they have the opportunity? So I think it'll be really interesting to see, what happens from here.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Anna, and it's so interesting that you say that. I actually had a conversation 2 weeks ago with one of our parishioners, one of our members, who's 95 years old. She just turned 95. She is moving to Florida. She's purchased a home. She's moving to Florida. And one of my questions to her was, so, what are your plans? Are you going to find another church when you get down there? And she said, Charles, I'm not going anywhere. The whole COVID-19 process has opened up even her eyes to what the possibilities are. She's going to Florida. She plans to live stream service every single week. So I say all that to say, I think the whole pandemic, while it's presented us with some unique challenges, I think it's also presented us with some very unique opportunities as well in terms of how we view what we do, every week with worship. If you turn on Netflix, if you turn on, Spotify, your music, you have almost this kind of on-demand approach to everything in society at this point. And I think the whole COVID-19 crisis with everybody live streaming now is now brought that into what we do in ministry. I can attend, 3 or 4 services on a Sunday, and then a few more during the week by just kind of going back and watching rebroadcasts of services and things like that. So I think it has certainly opened up a lot of opportunity. And Lizzie, to your point about folks that are overseas watching the services, it's created a lot of new opportunities to spread the gospel of Christ. So I'm loving it and embracing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think there are a lot of people out there too, like you said, that are going to watch multiple services or listen to multiple things throughout the week. And that's awesome that, your reach can spread even more now that everyone has to plug into technology.
Yes. I mean, it's leveled the playing field. COVID-19 has really leveled the playing field. I heard one pastor say, there's no such thing as a mega church right now because the playing fields have been leveled. With a lot of opportunities with a camera, literally your cell phone camera, you could do it. Your cell phone camera and a platform, you can hold your service.
Yeah. So another question that sort of ties into what we were talking about before about viewership a little bit, but I'm curious if you guys have done like surveys with your congregations at all about kind of what they've enjoyed, what you guys could do differently, and how that feedback has impacted what you've done, or if you just have any advice to give to worship leaders that are out there kind of still struggling and figuring out how to do the whole online thing. So either whether it came from you as advice or whether it came from your congregation, if you've got advice for other worship leaders out there. So Lizzie, we'll start with you this time.
Sure. We were just talking this morning in a meeting, and our pastor has started doing this thing where he will do like a Zoom dessert with Pastor Ken with people in their homes. And so somebody delivers dessert, I don't know, DoorDash or something, and they sit and they Zoom and they just talk face to face, well, screen to screen. And something that he has heard a lot from people, he said, is that people really like that we are looking into the camera and we're talking to them and we're asking questions and we're saying, write in the comments this, tell us this. Like really, I think, Ryan, you said it, really specific connection points where we are interacting, and it's not just we're doing something on a stage that you're observing, but we are pretending like this camera is your face, and we're really trying to make it feel like we're doing here right now, rather than, a performance that you're watching. And so people have loved that. I mean, they've said in some ways they feel, because we have a large church, and so in some ways they say they feel closer to the pastors and the staff now than they did before, because there's not 1,000 other people in the room. And so it's really interesting. So aspects of what we're doing are connecting in better ways. Of course, we need to get back together when we can, but everything that we're doing that's working online, we're going to keep doing. I mean, Charles, I so appreciate what you said about this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to connect with other cities, other countries, people who are just, scrolling through Facebook who don't know the Lord, and they see that we're having church and they hear the gospel. Like, it's amazing. So.
Yeah, we've heard that a couple of times on our panels, that people are almost more engaged with conversations with leadership or with the congregation that are being posted online than the sermons each week. People just want to experience that connection and really feel heard right now. So I think that's good.
And it's interesting, it's interesting because I think we've seen over the last 2 decades that there's a confidence behind a computer screen when people are making comments and stuff like that. So I wonder if this has kind of upended it in a good way. There's more of a confidence to engage because you feel safer with a Christian or a church that maybe a non-believer would on this side of things, or maybe to ask a question or question faith in a way, or reveal a hurt because there is that safe computer screen or phone screen behind you. I don't know. I'm just kind of postulating around that, but that's kind of a good point, Lizzie.
Yeah, I think that's probably very true.
I was gonna say too, I agree with Lizzie. The eye contact with the camera, like even right now, I'm looking at the camera versus looking at you guys, and it's a completely different thing. And we've been telling our leaders, like, we have a camera called the people camera because we have several cameras. We're like, this is the people, this is where they're at, and look here when you're talking to them. And like I said, those every 10 minutes in our service, we're really looking, are we having a personal touch point with people? And it's amazing. People just need a little bit of like assurance from their leadership and a little bit of direction. Like you start off your service and you go, hey, in the comments section, let us know if you're new, or let us know what city you're watching from. One little moment like that makes people feel a part of what we're doing. And it seems so small, and it seems like sometimes as leaders, you feel like, oh, that seems like a TV show host, like a host would say that. I feel weird saying that. But you have to kind of get over that and reach out to people and have touch points with them. And that is something we've consistently gotten feedback from people. When we first started, we were not looking at the camera very well. We were just kind of like leading worship or speaking generally to a room, and it didn't connect the same. So I think those sort of touch points, reaching out to people, and we figured out kind of a digital way for people to connect with us. We have like a little text-in thing, which most people do, but we consistently say that, hey, if you're curious about Jesus, you want to connect with Jesus, being real open and really clear with that sort of communication has changed a lot. But then we're giving opportunities for people to accept Jesus. And I think that, if I was to talk to any leader, I'm going, right now, people are accepting Jesus like crazy. And they are really hungry for hope in a world that's really hopeless and has no answers for them. And what an amazing opportunity for the gospel. So for us, we really took that on and said, okay, every moment in our every service, we're going to have a moment where we talk about the gospel, where we say, hey, if you want to connect with the pastor, text this number in. And then once we get their number, we say, hey, do you want a phone call? We'll call you, or to email you or text you, whatever you feel like. But we've seen people give their life to Jesus over the internet a lot in this season. And I just think churches, we just need to start fishing maybe a little bit more right now.
That's awesome.
That is super awesome. Yeah. And I think that comes back to what Sarah's saying a little bit. Of course, you have a lot more reach right now online, but people are willing, to kind of speak up or ask questions that they wouldn't, especially during this time. So opportunity abounds. So Tavarius, what have you either heard or learned that you want to share with everyone today?
Well, I've heard in many ways that online church is very uncomfortable. And typically my response is it should be. We've alluded to it and I actually talked in detail about it, how it's needed. It gives us the opportunity to reach so far beyond what's comfortable to us. And so I think it's a good thing that it's uncomfortable. And it also challenges us as a church to do something that is different, something that's uncomfortable. The church that I'm, getting ready to transition to has gone as far as, wanting to dedicate an actual leader, a campus pastor, so to speak, to an online church experience. And I just think that that's beautiful. That's so amazing, that the intentionality to do that, because you not only do you know it's a good thing to do, but you see the fruit from it. You know what I mean? People are responding in a very positive way, and you see that, and so you want to dedicate someone, a leader, to really just take on that role. Again, it shows intentionality. It shows that there's an understanding of the need, and you just reach well beyond your local community, or even what's in your surrounding areas. You could reach across the world by doing things like that. And I think, again, if churches say that it's uncomfortable for them, they're probably the ones that need to be doing it the most. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's really cool that, it's good to be local and to think about your congregation and your community. But if there's people out there who want to talk to you and hear what you have to say, and they're open to hearing what you have to say, then why shut them out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if I could just piggyback on something Ryan was saying around engagement, I think we just have a huge opportunity at engagement right now with our congregation. And I talked earlier about the night of worship that we did a few weeks back. And one of the key components that I almost took for granted until I heard what you just said, Ryan, was this online engagement piece. I actually worked with our media team, our social media team, and being very intentional about saying, you know what, during the night of worship, we almost want to plant you online to help create engagement in the chat rooms across the different platforms. And it worked wonders. We had so much online engagement. And I think, an overall thing that I'm hearing is that, folks really, they want that connection. We can't have that physical connection within our buildings right now, but we created an online connection. Our pastor, Pastor DeForest Soaries, I told him he should have copyrighted this phrase, the building is closed, but the church is open. And I think, we've taken that online, to answer kind of the B part of your question around, what we can do as we're sitting here talking. Some of the things I'm writing down and thinking about this being a season of opportunity is really, it's an opportunity to learn. For us as music ministry and worship leaders, I think it's an opportunity for us to learn more about worship, and also to teach it to our folks who we're normally meeting with on a weekly basis, but they're sitting at home now. It's an opportunity to engage with them. And I'm just writing down some ideas that I plan to take back even to our music ministry, because we could do more Zoom calls with each other, kind of the happy hour pieces. But then also, we can talk about the lyrics to some of the songs that we already know. We can introduce new music as well. So it's just, I think ways to engage our parishioners. Another thing that I wrote down was really, learning new worship leading skills. And I think the whole camera piece is critical when we talk about, because I write a lot of the job descriptions for the different components in our worship ministry. And I just actually wrote down the whole camera piece and developing some verbiage around it, because it's going to be critical to, worship leaders now. It's not just about what we're doing in the sanctuary. I think right now we're charged to do what the hymn writer says about how to reach the masses, men of every birth. For the answer, Jesus gave the key. And lifting Jesus up, it's not just a building thing now. It's an online experience as well. So I appreciate this conversation, because I'm having a ton of ideas, and I'm just over here writing away.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, it looks like we are right on the hour. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. And I think everyone out there has learned a little bit today from you all. So thank you. And we will see the rest of you next week on Tuesday at the same time.
Huge pleasure, you
Thanks,
guys.
guys. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.